Hello, everyone. This is a live broadcast again today, and today I'll show you how wave genetic matrices work, explain how to use them, and there's a great deal where you can buy them at half price all at once. Let's say this week, so on Sunday, you can buy the wave genetic matrices at half price all at once, and then I'll show you the energetic demonstration that you can try at home, and I'll explain how the matrices work. So it might be a difficult topic, but I'll try to explain it simply. It's about a superluminal flow, and I don't even know how to introduce the video, but what do you think about this new energetic story? I haven't asked yet what your opinions are on this, and I would be very happy if as many of you as possible would comment on this video because there's very little feedback. So this is a live video. Hello, hi, not AI, just the company's name is AI, but this is not AI. And I'm curious, I'm making the video from home. There will be a demonstration soon where I'll show you what a shockwave looks like and where the operation of the matrices comes from. At home, you'll be able to create your own matrices, which you can't listen to, only use. That's the promise of this video, okay? But, and here's the but, you have to use it carefully because why? It carries all the information with it. You've seen in various experiments that when I create this energy, there are these waves. Something, you've seen this. Well, just that it goes through everything. This means that these shock waves carry the information of other materials with them, as this happens in the quantum physical space, in the quantum vacuum, actually. You could say it's in another dimension completely. You could say in another size dimension. From another perspective, this information transfer and shockwave works, and it happens here, and you can use it. Well, cheers to that. What can I say? Pretty cool thing. It's a good thing today. What are your thoughts on the topic? Because I was very surprised that the connections I found a year and a half ago turned out to be true. And if you look at the descriptions, you know I named the Avramenko plug as the Eye of Horus now. You might not know what that is. Maybe you don't know. I don't know what you know or don't know, but check out that this Eye of Horus story actually fits with what I find and what I'm talking about. So this story can be traced back thousands of years, okay? The story can be traced back many thousands of years, and it's clear that they used this system back then too, to see how to create more energy or more phenomena, stronger phenomena, like 4 or 5 watts. So no one should be scared here. It's not about, it might not be scary, because for someone it might be scary. You know what's up with this now. Let's experiment with it. So I'd like to mention Zolt Stoica. You can find his channel or group on Facebook. Just search for Radiant Energy, Zolt Stoica. You'll find it. The gentleman conducts many very good experiments and is very enthusiastic. Now, if I know correctly, he's around 60 years old. I talk to him a lot. We share ideas, we try them out. So it's not just about thinking, but we actually do it, then we see if there's a result or not. And I want to encourage you to go ahead and put these systems together, because with such a small energy level, these are not dangerous things. Much more dangerous is what's in the 220 or 240 network. And I'd like to share an interesting insight before I start the experiments, okay? My first insight is that magnetism is nothing more than this energy closed in a loop. Here in my hand is a lighter. I couldn't find a magnet. And imagine this is a magnet. The force lines around it look like this, right? They go around like this way, and on the other side in space. Now then, how are magnets made? You might not know, but it's very interesting, and you can look it up. Please, if you're interested in this topic, look into it regarding magnets. The video is not fake. This is just a theory that can be observed in practice. It's a theory that can actually be observed in practice. So we were talking about magnets, right? How are magnets made? They are made from materials that are not inherently magnetizable. So they have some decay cycle, right? So these materials from which magnets are made decay over time. We can agree on this too. There's nothing I said that would make you say, oh my God. But how are these magnets made? By placing them in an electric field. They place these materials in an electrostatic field at higher pressure. And magnetism is created, right? So that's how magnets are made. Neodymium magnets are made this way, and so are bar magnets, and pretty much all magnets. Relatively smaller, weaker magnets are made with another method, but stronger magnets are made this way. Okay. So could you follow? Do you understand? So there's some material, electric field, pressure, the magnets are ready. There's a little issue I'd like you to check. So I thought my principle, I always look for the flaw in it. I look for it just in case I'm wrong, just in case I missed something. And the next table, when the magnet is ready, do you know what its half-life is? I mean, how long it takes for a magnet to decay? Much, 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 much slower than it was before. What does this mean? This means that time closure actually occurs, a time loop is created. A self-contained energy loop is created, which is time itself. So these shock waves actually belong to the sources of time, as Kisvoli Gyuribachi and Kisvoli György say. Well, for a good few decades. He didn't just come up with this now. And regarding these, we only noticed, more specifically that these are shock waves. So they are actually shock waves propagating in space-time. That's it. But since it can't only move forward, but it can also move backward if it reflects. It's not just simple wave reflection, but time works in reverse within it afterward. Time within it then moves backward. So the time loop, so the loop in magnets is created. The loop maintains that state, so it lasts a long time. So time loop. That's the energy ring you see under the ferrocell. You place a piece of magnet under the ferrocell. Do you see how the magnetic field looks? So in other words, the magnetic field is nothing but a time loop. And then you ask, but why does it push here? Why does it pull? Why does it do this? Because of order. Order. It's a very simple thing, much simpler than you'd think. You don't have to imagine anything complicated. There's nothing complicated about it. Order means geometry. Every geometric shape is order, because what is disorder? So if you draw a blot, well, that's not really a geometric shape, although from some perspective it might be. But if you draw a triangle already, you see this is the simplest geometric shape, 3 points. Or you draw a concave or convex angle. So whether it's inward, it doesn't matter. That was math. Sorry, my apologies. Simply draw a quadrilateral, draw a pentagon, hexagon. And how far can you increase the order? In a two-dimensional figure, all the way to a circle. Then, how does this look in space? In space, for example, an octahedron. And then you can complicate it further until you reach the sphere. The sphere is the most perfect octahedron in three-dimensional mathematics. So in other words, the degree of order can be increased and the degree of order can also be decreased. However, this energy, when it reflects off something, you can call it time energy because that's really what it is. So when the energy reflects, it reflects off an ordered geometric shape, right? Not a disordered one. So a disordered geometric shape doesn't actually exist. It's always ordered what it reflects off. And imagine something very interesting happens beyond this. It shows coherence. That is, if it reflects off an ordered thing, it moves backward in time and shows a cohesive effect, order, coherence. Moreover, if it reflects multiple times, the coherence increases, the order increases in the system. For example, in the fluorescent tube, where you saw the shock wave go through the tube, right? It reflects. And as it zigzags, but you don't see this yet because there's no visible light from it. And when the coherence, so actually what is coherence? What is orderliness? Well, it's just information. Orderliness is specifically just information. Orderliness is an abstract concept because we as humans understand what order is. But when you see a geometry, you can see that it's a geometric shape. Whether it's spatial or planar, it doesn't matter. It's one. It shows order. So when it reaches the state of coherence, high coherence, it becomes light. Because if you increase coherence, that is, increase cohesion, let's say, in terms of energy, then light is the highest coherent state. There might be a higher coherent state, but we don't see or perceive it. In physical cases with physical objects, what is the most coherent shape? Or what is the most coherent thing in physical materials? The crystal, crystallization, because it simultaneously shows a geometric pattern and physical cohesion. So basically, this force, this time energy, is nothing more than the explanation of weak and strong interactions, among other things, at atomic levels, right? Because there is something there that holds materials together. It holds the small particles together, and they said these are gluons. There is no such particle as a gluon. They just said there's this glue particle. So basically, orderliness holds it together, you see. So if there was any mistake in the logical deduction, anything, write it down on the side. Feel free to ask, comment, think about it. That's what we're doing. Guys, that's what we're doing, and we understand why wave genetic matrices work. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful name you have. World 3D 1T, if I'm reading it correctly. Hi, hello. Feel free to speak up about the topic. So now I'll show you what the experiment looks like, and then I'll explain how wave genetic matrices work and how to use them. And there's a 50% discount until Sunday. You can use the X50 coupon code. It's worth buying them all at once. Because if you have some kind of business, then you don't have to buy them individually. And if you have a European Union tax number, you can even buy from us tax-free. You might have to wait a day or two for a response because I have a lot to do. So there was someone who bought on Saturday or Sunday and meanwhile called twice, wrote 3 emails asking where the package is. Look, I have things to do. That's how it is. Let's go to the other room and then I'll show you what's going on. You can safely try this experiment at home. There's no danger in it. Just that electronic devices in the area might behave strangely because these shock waves, well, they come from the quantum physics field, which also means that quantum physics effects appear on a large scale. Here's the tube. Now I'll try to set it up again so you can see something of the whole thing, okay? It will look like this. Now, where should I put it? I'll put the laptop down for a moment. Sorry, I'll be right back. I just need to put the chair on the... I'll make a stand. A camera stand. Like that, right? Because I didn't want to do it from the phone. The live quality is much weaker. I thought the laptop would be good. It's only HD. So you see the tube, and then there's a piece of cable wrapped around it. Now the tube at the end of the light tube, but it's just clipped on with a crocodile clip. Okay, I'll just put it here. The other end is in the water. I also put another small wire on it, a kind of lamp with a small leg. Boo! The beauties of girls. Good. With this, I will tell and show how wave genetic matrices work. If you followed the beginning of the video and understood what it's about, then you will understand how wave genetic matrices work in just a moment. We touch one part of it because now how this will work, we'll find out soon. Oops. Oh my God. I almost broke it. It would be better to put this somewhere else. This is not needed for the moment. Well, I managed to make it very stable. So I just plugged the other end of the cable into the water pipe connector. This lights up, we're used to that. By the way, above me is a 100-watt LED ceiling light. It really is 100 watts. So it seems weak there. It's not necessarily that weak. See, the cable cooker became active. I didn't press it, but I didn't touch it either. It lights up green. That's what I was talking about. Once. Well, those shock waves go into the water, and there too, they send out quantum physical information. They send out such a wave field. Now, if you want to make some homeopathic solution on the dead, feel free to soak it. Because the situation is that this works very nicely, but when the waves start moving here, and it's about a quantum physical field in the first round, if we don't jump into time energy yet to see how that works, then it means that the information of the metal and the gas inside the tube also goes through and reflects back, zigzagging back and forth. It gets in and radiates out. So now I'm getting metal information nicely, and gas information, and glass information, and water information, and plastic information, and all that. So it's a very bad idea to put some herbal thing on it, thinking it will radiate that out. Because it will radiate it out. You're right about that. It will work well, but the body will also receive other information. Here's the catch. And now, as I stand here, all that happens is that these waves pass through me too, because in the quantum field there are superluminal flows, which means there's no real obstructive medium. It only has a distribution but no obstructive medium, so the wave and the information spread relatively unrestricted in it. So this is not the best for homeopathic methods, but it's not dangerous. You know what's dangerous? Electromagnetism. I was up until 4 in the morning talking with Zsolt Stolka. He repeated these experiments too. And the situation is that the loop around the magnetism, well, the loop of magnetism is really a time loop. Exactly. And then the information of the magnet's material is also in a time loop. That's all that happens in it. But if the question arises in the meantime, please believe it. Please. In the case of magnetism, these loops are divided into right and left torsions. So the energy inside spins to the right or to the left. This is real in our reality from a material point of view. It's not good for us because it decays. So the left spinning thing is an accelerated time loop. It means an accelerated passage of time. The right one means a restorative passage of time and a cohesive passage of time if something spins to the right. Here it spins to the left. This is left, which goes down there, but when it reflects back into the water and moves back, from then on it becomes right. So if I grab it in Hungarian, and it goes down through me, passes through and reflects from me. At the moment of reflection, a right field is created. So from a biological information point of view, it would be good. But those information that are characteristic of the tube are still in it. So what can be done about this? Well, if you're interested in it from a biological information point of view, you can take a material sample, and let's say you place it in a material along with a DNA extract, or rather you just prepare a DNA extract and not a material sample, because if you prepare a material sample like apple juice or something, it might contain other acids or things that aren't necessarily good for the human body. Got it so far, right? You have a small cuvette, you put it in there, in a quartz cuvette, because quartz has a very good piezoelectric effect, so it can oscillate well, even in a quantum field. Now, once you have this with your DNA extract inside, you need to find an energy source to create shock waves that are independent of what creates them, independent of the emitter, so there shouldn't be any material sample information in it that won't be good for you. Create purely energy shock waves. How can you do this? Where did I put it? I don't want to pull it out now. with a gas laser. And not just any gas laser, because you have a tube, a metal tube, mirrored inside with a spiral, let's put it simply, a flash tube spiral inside. Well, like here, but it's driven in a spiral. And it focuses the energy in the center. One side is permeable, the other is not. And in the middle, the energy shock wave is created, which is pure. And it immediately exits the thing. It's called a laser. This is the gas laser. But, and here's the but, not just any gas laser is suitable. No. Because these shock waves you see in the cell tube, they're not just created as lazy shock waves that start and then something happens. That's good enough. No. These need to be very fast shock waves with high energy levels, little spikes to, how should I say, activate the quantum field a bit. So it needs to be very fast. It needs spikes, little impulses. And an impulse would look like this if you viewed it in 2 dimensions on an oscilloscope, or on an impulse and then on a decay. Again, an impulse. And for this, femtosecond lasers are good. So ones that emit incredibly fast impulses. These are extremely expensive lasers in Europe, significantly cheaper in Russia, but there aren't many types. That's why Guardian created the wave genetic lasers, because if these very small shock wave pass through the material sample, which is pure energy, then the material sample itself reflects these waves nicely, scatters them, right? It's that simple. And then you can capture them with various devices to reapply the wave genetic matrix. It needs to be stored in reverse, inverted as it was recorded, because it will reflect back inside you. So when you listen to the wave genetic matrices as sound, which were created from the material sample, a reflection occurs inside you, which has a regenerative effect, right? Because it shows coherence, because it specifically reflects of a geometric shape of you. And it's inside you. It reflects, oscillates. This sound which shows coherence, the kind of coherence it was created from. Got it so far? This is how it executes the regenerative effect, quite specifically. How long should you listen? Well, it varies. 30 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, and it doesn't really matter which part you listen to. That's the really interesting part. Because if you think about time, what was in the past, what will be, what is now, you see there's a past, present, future state. These are all stored in space-time. So simply put, the shock wave reaches back in time and reflects the state from which that sound sample was made. It's essentially holographic in nature, if you think about it. So it's like the information is stored holographically everywhere in space-time. So if you cut out any slice, it gives back the original sample. Based on György Kisvodi's explanations, this is very visible when making a film, with a regular traditional camera. And when the film is recorded, it's two-dimensional because you see the image appears two-dimensional. However, if you illuminate the negative with a laser, place it on an optical bench, and use settings typical in holography like a beam and a reference beam, then from the negative, the film negative, a three-dimensional image can be produced. Because nature is like this. Nature is not two-dimensional. It never was. Nature is multidimensional. And the film itself already stores the most possible states. Three-dimensional systems. So when a three-dimensional film is created, when you want to print it, you're not really printing dots, but creating interference patterns, interference images. Just saying as an interesting fact, interference images. The matrices are also interference images. Essentially, inverse interference images are the wave genetic matrices. They sound really awful, so they're not pleasant to listen to. When you start a wave genetic matrix, the sound is like tuning between two radio channels on an analog radio, and it just has this hissing, crackling sound. Because it's an inverted sound, which can be from a biological sample, it's created very clearly, extremely clearly. And that's why it matters. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but whether you're listening to Rife frequencies or heart coherence frequencies, because unfortunately for many people, it's just that there are frequencies that are good because we are also made of frequencies. But now you've understood since the beginning of the video that the story isn't that simple. The story isn't that simple at all. The story is even more complicated. Towards the end of the video, I'll jump in a bit to talk about the quantum vacuum for a moment to see what it looks like, because I presented that it is realized in quantum physics and the quantum vacuum. Almost. Because the quantum vacuum itself doesn't answer many questions. For example, its energy level. Why does the quantum vacuum oscillate and move? What makes it dynamic? Why can we say that every quantum process, every little wave has its own time? Doesn't it have its own time? This hasn't been considered until now. The quantum physics model is 120 years old. And on August 20th, let me solemnly announce that the concept was not correct, because they didn't include time in the factors, that every wave has its own time. They didn't define quantum time. They made such a mistake. And here are the problems. Now, this is where the problem originates, that they couldn't imagine what causes the dynamism. Well, the change. Well, when I emit an impulse, a signal, there's a straight line, so you understand direct current. When you have two poles and then the current, whatever it is, continuously flows through it, right? What's the difference between alternating current and direct current? Or let's say a square wave, simpler. What's the difference between a square wave and direct current? One single thing. Time. There's no other difference besides time. So when I chop it, that's all I do. The fact that I chop it already means time. It doesn't mean energy, it just means time. This is the principle the Russians started with in research 80 years ago. And I'm really sorry, but there's no mention of this at universities in Hungary. The torsion model exists. Not how it works, just that it exists. And that's a big problem, because quantum physics can be better explained this way. Let's look at the water element, György Kisvodi's water element. In the quantum vacuum, a ring structure is realized like a donut. Its surface is multi-layered, not just one, multi-layered. And the flow of time is what sustains the whole thing. So it really looks like the ring flows from below inward, from inside outward, from below upward. That's how the ring flows. If we look at it from the front and slice it, but on its surface, there's a half-turn twist. In this reality, left. If we want something regenerative, then right. When the energy reflects, it's right-handed. So these are the two spin states, just left or right. This also causes the spin states of particles, because this is the only phenomenon that, well, comes together very complexly, and then it becomes an atom or almost something. But it still needs a lot of things. So let's clarify that for flow, at least two mediums are needed. So I say it flows like this, okay? But two different, fundamentally different mediums are needed for the flow. The flow itself doesn't just happen in nothingness. So this means that something must flow from top to bottom through the ring. This is the energy of time. Kozyrev described it as two different structures passing through each other. A material-like structure, these are the time toroids, which are only material because they form a time loop. Well, if you notice, it just does this, right? And it's twisted with a half spin. That's all it does. But this is a time loop. This means it's there for eternity, from infinity to infinity. It has no beginning, it has no end. It never had a beginning, it never had an end. It won't end, it doesn't, because time itself has no end. The film keeps rolling, it shows something else each time, but it works. But as the energy of time flows through it, that's the big thing. Because it must show coherence. So as the energy of time flows through it, it shows coherence upwards. These are the geometries, these geometric shapes. This is geometry itself. So when I say sacred geometry, you can think of it as having a unifying effect and where this time energy originates from. And what it comes from? Well, from the most coherent thing, when the first ring expanded, these little rings, toroids, multi-surfaced, so multi-surfaced, can expand very large, this water element. And when it expanded very large, the first, well, then there were some problems. Now I'm reporting this is the base, the base, the base, the base, the base. I'll turn off the base. There were problems with it. The first problem is that since there was no boundary, no limit, there were no physical rules, there was no information in the system itself, but the first little toroid had already formed. György Kisfuri can now explain how the little toroid was formed. Two creations when they met, no uncle, aunt. Two existence waves, or how should I say, whatever. So problems arose very quickly. And the problems look like this, that since it could spread faster than the speed of light, because it's a superluminal state, so there's no speed of light limit in it. It has no mass. The speed of light limit is only a limit, because if something were to travel faster than the speed of light, it would require an infinite amount of energy, which theoretically doesn't exist. But if something has no mass, it can travel at any speed, especially if the initial starting state is at a very high speed. Compared to what? Well, there's no reference point. Or fast compared to what? Infinite. The infinite is infinite. So when the first one was created, it caused a time contradiction. Well, for example, if it can travel faster than the speed of light, that's a time contradiction, let's say. But the more severe time contradiction is that it can happen before it even started. Joe is at the store before he even wants to go to the store. It can happen sometimes, but it's rare. Time contradiction. And these time contradictions cause other strange phenomena. For example, it could be in multiple places at once. It multiplied itself so much that it was alone in multiple places at once in different states. Moreover, and it's still the same, not different, it's the same. It's very hard to imagine this in everyday terms. And the big question is really what the heck causes the differentiation? So what the heck causes us to jump into this quantum state and I am me and you are you? And that reflection is our consciousness. The materiality is this left-handed spin. But our consciousness is right-handed. Our soul is right-handed. Our soul shows a very strong unifying effect with which we connect to much higher dimensional levels. So we connect to the original state itself. I'll tell a simpler story to make it easier to imagine the whole thing. Let's jump back. There will be a little story in it, okay? Let's jump back 4,000 years, 4,500. Let's jump back in time. To the time of the Egyptians, they said there were demigods and gods and the global consciousness. When they said they believed in some spherical thing, that was actually the end of it all. when the whole thing manifests in its completely perfect form, and from there it radiates, reflects back. That's where we realize ourselves, somewhere in the middle, on the edge, or who knows where, somewhere inside. Well, but the Egyptians thought that these demigods, like Horus or the others, they weren't really on the side of humans. Horus was on the side of humans, the others weren't. So according to the story, Horus was killed. But if you look at the legend of the Eye of Horus, which I said is the Avramenko plug, the energetic aspect of the Eye of Horus, if you look at the legend, how it looks, then it fits. It fits completely. They've been searching for a long time. It seems secret, but it's not. It's a simple thing. So there we are in Egypt. Horus is dead. The gods, or rather the demigods, overdid it. It means they started to dominate over humans too much. Not considering that human consciousness surpasses them because it comes from the Creator. Now, there were some problems here, right? In this theory, because that's not fair, or how should I say? The global consciousness sensed this. I don't know how, I won't say it sensed it. As a result, it shook itself a bit, and the power of the demigods was no longer as great as before. However, to give humans some guidance, a laser-like beam was created in the global consciousness, in the huge sphere, if you can imagine it like that. Not a sphere, it's more like the outer edge of a fractal, but it doesn't matter now. And a single strong energy wave was created, focused on the area where Jesus was born. And he said he comes from the Creator. He didn't say from the demigods or the gods or this or that. He said from the Creator. Hello, Bello. It means the global consciousness was directly connected from there to there. So the beam, the connecting link was there. And this is how he tried to shape people and tell them what reality might be, roughly. He didn't say to build temples. He didn't say to believe in him. He gave parables. For example, he said, if you had faith as small as a mustard seed and you told the mountain to come here, the mountain would come here. Now, this is still hard to interpret, let alone back then, but he tried to say that this whole reality is essentially a holographic system. It's more complicated than that. Because if we use higher dimensional levels like the fourth as energy looks, then there are already cumulatively more complex things, more complicated things than here. Like a shadow world, this is. So as if we were just the shadows of a three-dimensional object, then the complexity is the difference. To understand, the difference is huge. Around the fifth dimension, where the level of the gods is, they can create the following. Indian mathematicians calculated this. Indians are very good at mathematics. Maybe not in other things, but they're damn good at mathematics. And they calculated what possibilities there would be if a fifth dimension existed. There you can dream worlds as a single consciousness and experience reality physically from the perspective of every living being on each little planet. But you know that you are you, but still every little being's, so you can shape reality as you please. Let's put it that way. And that's just the fifth dimension, okay? Now the situation is, according to the Ukrainian and Russian models, how many layers are there in the Fancom? Titled question. 12 or 13. How complex is that? Where the heck does it come from? Because who knows? Nobody knows. It's incredibly complex. And do you know where we are? Somewhere in the middle. There are still a few levels below us. So there is a lower level. That's all I want to say, that in terms of complexity, cohesion, and coherence, there is a lower level where beings are not necessarily as conscious, and this brings along many other things. You could call it hell or the underworld or something like that, but these are still levels of reality. It's as solid a physical reality as this one here, both upwards and downwards. We're lucky to be here. That's all I have to say. It can be bad even at a demigod level. I wouldn't look downwards. That's my view on the subject. And until now, this was just hearsay. It was just a legend until now that maybe such a thing exists. Maybe the little ones are coming. Is he right? Maybe the Russian torsion field model is really good for something. That's just the situation. That when you see something like this and try it out and convince yourself that it exists, then you see that it exists. So what I've just told you, if you connect the story with mathematics, well, then it turns out that it exists. Now let's look at these shock waves. You can see it somewhat like this, but if I hold the tube, you can clearly see that it actually moves back from the water and that the power level intake really doesn't change. There it is at 12.1 volts, you see? So this is really what's happening. Now you might say, well, it doesn't light up significantly, which is true. But even then, the power level intake doesn't change, it consumes less. Now, according to traditional electronic concepts. But if that wasn't enough, then I just dipped a little red cable into the water and there's a little LED light on it. You see, it doesn't light up much. I'm holding the edge directly on a single contact and I just hold it a little closer. There's no switch on it, you see, there's no battery or anything. And if I hold it tighter, it lights up well. If I touch it to a conductive body like the kitchen sink, then it lights up quite significantly, but the power level intake still hasn't changed. So the tube lights up with the same brightness as before, and so does the bulb. So when you see that this is happening and you see that the shock wave really passes through here and it really works, as Roland says, that it reflects back because it doesn't work like this. And if I hold it, then it works. There's no switch or anything like that, you see? And if you try this at home, by buying a silicone tube, for example, which you can get anywhere, then you'll see that this is happening. So what I've just told you, folks, this means that religion, religions, and technology can be connected. So simply you see that not only is there what you don't see, but that quantum physics models are correct, the torsion field model is correct, and religions are also right. And if you connect this and understand where we come from, then humanity has a chance. Otherwise, there's no political party, no amount of money, no leader, nothing that can help us. No one and nothing. If we don't solve it, then no one and nothing will solve it. On August 20th, this is my view on the story. And by the way, then, for example, 4 theories are right when they say that the toroid, the torus I'm talking about, its surface is magnetic. And I said it's not magnetic, there's no magnetism in the shock waves, but that's not true. I almost made a mistake, almost. It's both true and not true. Because the surface of the torus, the energy loops, but so is the magnet. Magnetism is that too. As you can really see that it forms from matter, there's a decay that decays, even. As I place it in an energy field, the material becomes magnetic and lasts much longer than before. For example, when it no longer receives energy, then it's just a magnet. That really magnetism itself is a time-energy loop. It holds it in time so they don't decay as much. It depends on how strong this loop is. If it's very strong, then the magnet lasts a long time. In time too. If it's weak, then it doesn't. So I might have managed to put together the explanation of wave mechanics. I hope I did. The principles of various religions too. It's worth looking into mathematical models to see how they manifest in 4D, 5D. Not just saying it's spiritual, because it's nice to imagine something, that's great, but look into how it really looks. So that is the story. That's it. And maybe there are still some gaps in it. For example, I can't say how to strengthen this infinitely, or any idea related to this. How to solve long-distance communication, I don't know exactly yet. All of these need to be experimented with. We need to figure them out. It's like a game. So, Christian Lehotsky. Hi, Roland. I'm already using the matrices. Question: if I program water, can I flavor it or will it ruin the structure? Think about it. If it encounters an inverse wave, and that inverse wave only contains the material pattern, so you have your wave-playing matrix, right? It originates from a material pattern. Let's say there's raspberry syrup in the water. Then something changes there. Well, if it reflects back, it will show a coherence. So if you have raspberry, it might become even more raspberry syrup-like. The taste of the raspberry syrup might become even stronger. You can imagine this. You have to try it, but I suspect it should be like this. Besides that, even the matrices will be included. So it's not a bad idea. Basically, it's a pretty good idea. Give it a try. You won't do anything wrong with it, that's for sure. So if avoid the coherence, that must be avoided. And you know, how terrible is electromagnetism? Do you understand now? What is electromagnetism then? What are electromagnetic waves? Well, it's just that there are loops in it. So in other words, electromagnetic waves are the same. The electromagnetic waves just go, and meanwhile there are a few packages in them that have these time loops. What's wrong with that? Well, the thing from which the electromagnetic wave comes out, antenna, coil transformer, its information is contained in the time loop. This came out of the transformer. The time loop contains the material properties characteristic of it. And the time loop passes through you. And the time loop is the time loop, so it will leave an imprint in you over time of the material from which it came. And this is how they work now. So the question is not whether the mobile phone transmitters cause cancer or not, because at what frequency? At every frequency. They are harmful to living organisms at every frequency. Thank God. Its strength decreases with the square of the distance. So you shouldn't get close to it. It's not good from afar, and it's bad up close. So it's a terrible thing. This is a peaceful, friendly thing, because you can think about what information it carries, how it is realized, and you can shape it so that it is not harmful. But you can't do anything about electromagnetism. So that's the Nikola Tesla said when he invented the three-phase electromagnetism, the three-phase electromagnetism generator and motors, I don't know, that it was terrible, the worst idea he had to give this to humanity. That's it. And this is how they produce the 240-volt household current with such three-phase systems. So why is there so much cancer if there wouldn't be enough of what they put on with the various radiations? It doesn't matter what hertz it is now. Hertz only affects how many packages you get per second. With high frequency, you get more. There are more time loops in it. With lower frequency, you get fewer. So here the only question is the density, how harmful it is. No one has tested it. No one has looked into it like this. György Kishuru can talk about this. He will tell you. Well, there aren't many people who have the same view, but some do in America. Emtek Industries, America is forming. Stoika, Hungary. Yes. Many people have the same view. And when everyone comes to the same view, we see the same thing the same way, then there's nothing to talk about. Then you see what is there. Moreover, if you think like this, you can think about how chemical, biological, and physical processes work. You can imagine how this can be realized inside the atom or on a large scale. And when you actually check if it works this way and you see that it does, then the theory is correct. Is it that simple? I thought I should explain this a bit in a spoon-feeding way, but It needs to be checked. And it's not about local processes. So it's one thing that you see something here, you touch something, I don't know what you do, but what realizes the whole thing is still a quantum non-local system. It's still a very, very complex system. So if you experience something here and measure it and examine what follows from non-locality, from non-causality, from non-causation, it's very hard to measure here. It's very hard to find an explanation for it here. It's damn hard. And let me close the video by saying, let's not take the whole thing too seriously. Because if there is any spiritual insight into the whole topic, you realize that the whole thing is like a dream. And within a dream, you examine what the dream is made of. It's a pretty strange concept. So I wish everyone good quantuming, good energy looping, good lighting, and homeopathic experiments and such. Just don't forget one thing. No matter how dreamlike the story is, you still have to eat, you still need money, and people still want to live better. Whether it's a dream or not, you still do. So the wave genetic alternative I recommend to you, because it's available at half price, can be obtained and you can be convinced of how it works. So it costs less than the treatment in Hungary. Currently available for 20,000 forints plus VAT. If you have an EU tax number, then even the VAT dropped down, the nice 27%. So you can buy it in one piece. It's more worthwhile to buy the packages in one piece. Thank you very much for watching the video. I wish everyone good experimenting and good thinking. Goodbye.